It's week 9 of the fantasy football season. You look down at your roster and next to your quarterback's name, you see the word bye. And instantly you go, it's my quarterback. What is going on, everybody? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's having a great week out there so far. Today we're talking quarterbacks, and I had to go a little old school in the intro. I wanted to make sure at least one time this year I got the old Terrell Owens sound clip in there, him crying about his quarterback. It's done with for the year now. I can cross it off my list. I've taken care of my duties. However, this week we're talking week 9 quarterbacks, and maybe you've been riding an Andrew Luck, an Andy Dalton, Carson Wentz. Maybe whoever's in your starting lineup has been underperforming. There's a lot of guys with some good matchups out there that are good streaming options here for week 9. And we're going to talk about them. Just like all the other start-sit videos, I'm going to talk about every quarterback in every game. No need in you guys sitting here for 20, 30 minutes of your day to find out that I don't even talk about the player that you own. It's not how we roll over here. We're touching all these guys here for week 9, and I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully you guys are ready to go. Let's talk some week 9 quarterbacks. Back to Thursday Night Football we go in the epic showdown of the Oakland Raiders and the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, I'm trying to make it sound good because it's probably not going to be a good game. I'm just trying to sell it on you guys so you look forward to something on Thursday Night Football. But let's talk about Derek Carr. He had by far one of his best games of the season last week, right? Indianapolis Colts last week, he threw for 244 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. It's the first time he's thrown for multiple touchdowns in a game since week 4 against the Cleveland Browns. And now he gets a decent matchup against the San Francisco 49ers. They're currently 26th against opposing quarterbacks, giving up on average 27 points per game. Last week against Josh Rosen, they gave up 252 yards and 2 touchdowns to him. This is something where Derek Carr has a great opportunity. The issue is going forward is who are his weapons, right? We thought last week it was going to be Jordy Nelson and Martavis Bryant. It turned out to be Brandon LaFell and Seth Roberts. Exactly. I mean, we just don't really know. Jared Cook is still a decent option there. They could still try to get Jordy and Martavis going. There's a whole lot of confusion in Oakland. And it's not just internal, it's external also, because a lot of us have no idea what's going on in Oakland, but it's a decent matchup. Now, am I going to go out there and say he is a must-start Derek Carr this week? Absolutely not, because he's not. But if you're in a deep league and you're just looking for a streaming option because you have injuries, bye weeks, poor play, whatever it is, he does have a good matchup. And as a streaming option only, I'm okay with Derek Carr. For the San Francisco 49ers, you have CJ Beathard, and unless you're in like a crazy deep league with multiple quarterbacks, super flex type leagues, you're not going to start CJ Beathard. But if for some reason you are, I said I'd talk about everybody on every team. Be careful with CJ Beathard. Right now he's dealing with multiple injuries on his throwing hand. He's having a hard time gripping the ball. There's a chance that he sits on Thursday Night Football, and if he does, be on the lookout for Nick Mullins. That's right. Nick Mullins. I don't care what league you're in, please don't start Nick Mullins. Moving on to Sunday, we got the Bears at the Bills, and we're talking about Mitch Magic. I can still use the hashtag because you know why? Dude is still playing great football. Last week was not his best game of the year, by far, but it was still a solid performance. Threw for 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Where he gets his added value is his continued improvement in the running game. He had another 51 yards rushing this past week, and it's starting to be something he relies on more, week in and week out. And that's really helping his owners and the people who have taken the gamble on starting him. Now, he gets the Buffalo Bills. And I get it. It's the Buffalo Bills. And I make fun of them a lot. But their defense is very much improved. We kind of saw that Monday night against the New England Patriots. They are a solid defense. It's the offense that is absolutely horrible. Now, is this something where we can trust Mitch this week? I think we still can. We need to have somewhat of limited expectations. This is the number 5 ranked defense against opposing quarterbacks, giving up on average 18 points per game. But Mitch Magic, like I said, has that added value from his ability to scramble and run the ball himself. He still has Taylor Gabriel and Tariq Cohen, who are both dynamic in that offense and really give him the opportunity for the big play. And those big plays, they add up quickly, and they can give you a solid day. Now, he is on the road in Buffalo. It's going to be a tough matchup, but I am still on the Mitch Magic bandwagon, and he's a start here for me in Week 9. For the Bills, we have Nathan Peterman, and I owe an apology here. In one of my earlier videos this week, I said I would rather have the dude sitting in section 212 who's 3 beers in, eating a foot-long hot dog, than I'd rather have Nathan Peterman. And I was mistaken. I apologize. It's actually the dude in 312, not 212. I got my numbers mixed up. My bad. Bucks and Panthers are next, and the original Magic Man is back in the show, talking Fitzmagic of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I love him this week. It's a tough matchup against the Carolina Panthers defense, but Ryan Fitzpatrick just has that, X factor in him. It could be the awesome, majestic beard. It could be the big, bulging eyes when he does something amazing. He just gets overly excited at times, but he makes football fun to watch, and it's something where this offense responds a little bit better with him. Yes, he's struggled with interceptions, but so has Jameis Winston. The difference is the way this offense responds with Ryan Fitzpatrick is apparent. First 3 games of this season, all 3 games, he threw for over 400 yards and a total of 4 touchdowns in those games, averaged close to 35 points a game. Yes, he came out week 4 against a tough Bears defense and struggled. It's the Bears defense. They took that as the opportunity to go back to Jameis. That didn't work. Insert Ryan Fitzpatrick back into the mix, and he is somebody who this offense loves to play for. You all of a sudden now have boosted value of Chris Godwin, Deshaun Jackson, Mike Evans. The running game is probably going to be non-existent, kind of similar to it was to begin the year. They know that he's going to throw the ball, and despite it being a tougher matchup, the Panthers are 19th against opposing quarterbacks, giving up on average 22.4 points per game. But let's be realistic. If you have Fitzpatrick, you just picked him up off the waiver wire. He is a great streaming option here for Week 9, and he's a definite start for me. For the Panthers, we got Cam Newton, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I see a little bit different Cam Newton this year than we've seen in years past. He's more consistent this year. It's not so boom or bust. In years past, he would go out there and score you 35, or he'd go out there and score you 13. He's a lot more consistent this year. The turnovers haven't been there, which are great. He's got 13 touchdown passes, multiple touchdown passes in every game with the exception of Week 1. Only 4 interceptions so far in the year. The rushing upside is still there, and this is a great matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for him. Yes, it's a road game, but I love Cam Newton this week. If you have him, you're starting him, and you're happy about it. Chiefs and Browns, and Patrick Mahomes is a must-start, absolutely. If you put him down in the comment section as a should I start him, it's going to be an emphatic yes. The guy is absolutely still killing it this year. 26 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions. Thrown for over 300 yards every single week with the exception of Week 1 against the Chargers. Has thrown 4 touchdown passes in 3 straight games. Automatic, must start. Yes, they're going up against the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are a little bit better against the pass, currently 11th against opposing quarterbacks, giving up on average over 20 points per game. But let's be realistic, it doesn't matter who he's playing, we're starting Patrick Mahomes. How about on the other side of the football for the Cleveland Browns and Baker Mayfield? Is he somebody that we want to start this week? And I kind of do. I like the upside of Baker here against the Kansas City Chiefs at home. We know the Chiefs are going to go out and put up points. They do it every single week. Baker's going to have to throw the ball to stay in this game. And with all the changes, all the coaching changes and drama in Cleveland, I kind of expect Baker to have the leashes removed a little bit. It was kind of apparent that Hugh Jackson wanted to throttle Baker Mayfield back at times. Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley did not get along. That was apparent in the Hard Knocks episodes in the preseason. I can kind of see them coming out and just, removing the leashes and letting Baker Mayfield go. Does that mean he's a top quarterback rest of season? He's going to struggle at times. He's going to be somewhat matchup dependent, but I do like this matchup. And if you're looking for a quarterback in Week 9, I expect an improved Baker Mayfield here this week against the Kansas City Chiefs team at home. They're currently the 27th ranked defense to opposing quarterbacks, giving up on average 27 points a game. It's a decent matchup, and I'm starting Baker Mayfield. Jets and Dolphins are next, and typically I would just say, yeah, we're not going to start these guys and move on, but I told you I'd talk every player, every game. For Sam Darnold, he has the talent. He has the ability. Right now he's lacking weapons. We've had injuries, to Robbie Anderson. They cut Terrell Pryor. Quincy Enunwa's been hurt. He's got limited weapons, and they can't protect the kid. He's constantly running for his life. He's only had 2 200-yard passing performances out of the last 6 games. He's thrown 11 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, and partially because he's constantly under pressure, making a few bad decisions. He's obviously going to be a sit for me this week, regardless of who he plays. But he does have talent going forward. This may be a name we talk about more next year than we talk about this year. For the Dolphins, we still have Brock Osweiler as of the time of this recording, and it's Brock Osweiler, and the normal Brock Osweiler showed back up last week against the Houston Texans, where he only had 241 yards, no touchdowns, and 1 interception. That's the Brock that we're used to seeing. However, it's still a decent play. Now, obviously, we're not going to start Brock Osweiler. He's played better than a lot of people had expected, and it's a decent matchup going up against the Jets team, which is currently 21st against opposing quarterbacks, giving up on average 23 points per game. But this is another guy. His weapons are limited. This could be a very run-heavy game here, just because there's so many wide receivers banged up all over the field on both sides of the football. You're not starting Brock Osweiler, but I told you I'd talk about him. Steelers and Ravens are next. We'll start off with Big Ben, and I really don't care for Big Ben here in Week 9 on the road in Baltimore. Now, typically, this is where most fantasy analyst people just say, oh, well, he's on the road and he's not a great start. And that's been true in the past. But this year, he's played a lot better on the road. He's thrown for over 300 yards in all the games they've been on the road so far. But this is just a different kind of matchup. Similar to that rivalry matchup. That's always one of those hard-hitting, ground and pound type games. And the Baltimore defense is nothing to just overlook. Right now, the 3rd overall defense against opposing quarterbacks, allowing only 17 points per game on average. Last week against the Carolina Panthers, they limited Cam Newton to 232 yards and 2 touchdowns, which isn't bad. But like I said, this is a solid defense in Baltimore. It's a road game. Big Ben dealing with an injury on his non-throwing hand. This is just one of those games where I see a lot more ground and pound, hard-hitting, running the ball than I see a lot more down the field throwing. I'm going to sit Big Ben this week against the Ravens and hope that does not backfire. How bold would it be if I said I was actually going to start Joe Flacco over Big Ben in this game? It's bold, and a lot of you guys are like, this guy's nuts. But I'm telling you, I kind of like Joe Flacco a little bit more this week. Yes, they're at home, and he's struggled more here in the past few weeks than he did to start the season. He started off hot, and I get that. The last couple of games, it started to tail off a little bit. He only has 4 touchdown passes in his last 4 games, so that was a huge drop-off from the beginning of the year. But it's a great matchup. Right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're ranked 28th against opposing quarterbacks, giving up almost 30 points per game, and they've allowed multiple touchdown passes to opposing quarterbacks 5 out of the 7 games that they've played. I like Joe Flacco this week. Is he an absolute must start? No, but as a streaming option, I think he has a safe floor, and I'm not against starting him here if you really need a quarterback and there's limited options in your league. Lions and Vikings are next. We'll start with Matthew Stafford, and this is somebody who I'm already starting to see a lot of questions about. How does the departure of Golden Tate hurt the value of Matthew Stafford going forward? And to be honest, I really don't think it hurts that much. If anything, it boosts the value of a Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones, and he still has plenty of weapons to throw it to. Listen, Matthew Stafford is there to throw the football. It's like what he does. He's not there to turn around and hand the ball off 25 times a game, as much as we would like that sometimes because we like Kerryon Johnson. They're going to throw the ball in Detroit. He has multiple touchdown passes every single week this season with the exception of week 1. And if you take away that horrible week 1 against the Jets where he had 4 interceptions, he's only had 2 since. He's playing great football, but this is a tough matchup. They're going to be on the road in Minnesota against the Vikings defense that has been much improved against opposing quarterbacks here as of late. In fact, over the last 3 weeks, on average, they're only giving up 10 points per game to opposing quarterbacks. For the year, it was a lot rougher for them at the beginning of the year, so they're still giving up on average 21 for the year, but they've been much improved, like I said, the past 3 weeks. I'm still going to start Matthew Stafford. The Vikings can go out there and they can put up some points here on the Lions, and they're going to be forced to somewhat abandon the run in Detroit, I can see this week, and go more heavy through the air. And Matthew Stafford's still going to have his opportunity. I can still see close to 40 pass attempts. And Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay are great enough weapons for him to go out there and be successful week in and week out. I'm still going to start Matthew Stafford here in week 9. For the Vikings, we have Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins still receives a lot of hate. He kind of gets called this whole game manager, and he's being overpaid, which, yes, I agree, he's somewhat overpaid, but that's a whole different story. But he's been one of the most consistent fantasy quarterbacks here so far, averaging 27 points per game. Currently quarterback number 3 in fantasy football. This is a decent matchup for him here against the Detroit Lions. He's got Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Kyle Rudolph. Latavius Murray has been more than effective in the backfield. You're not going to sit Kirk Cousins this week. On average, the Detroit Lions are giving up on average 23 points per game to opposing quarterbacks. They've given up multiple touchdown passes to opposing quarterbacks every single week, with the exception of week 3. This is a great start for Kirk Cousins. If you got him, you're going to play him, and you're going to be happy with it. He's got that safe floor here, hopefully, for week 9. Falcons and Redskins are next, and we're talking about Matt Ryan, who's had himself a very good start to the season. 15 touchdown passes to only 2 interceptions. Hasn't thrown an interception since week 2. He's a solid start week in, week out, averaging over 30 points per game. Obviously, good enough for the 4th-rated fantasy quarterback. And he's got a decent matchup. Yes, he's on the road in Washington. They're currently ranked 16th overall, which is middle of the pack, giving up on average 22 points per game. But it's Matt Ryan. He's got Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones. They haven't really been able to establish a run game, which has in turn, made them throw the ball more through the air. And that's what's giving Matt Ryan one of these great seasons. If you have him, he's a great start here for week 9. For the Redskins, we got Alex Smith, and there's really nothing bad against Alex Smith. He just has limited weapons right now. He's another one of these teams that the wide receivers just can't stay healthy. His healthiest option still is Jordan Reed, which is crazy to say because it's week 9. However, he really hasn't gotten Reed overly involved to this point, but this is a great matchup. Now, Alex Smith has not thrown for over 200 yards since week 5. He's been struggling, but partially that's due to his lack of weapons, his lack of options. Adrian Peterson's run game could really be helping out Alex Smith right now if he had more decent options, more healthy options on the outside to throw it to. But now he gets the Atlanta Falcons. And the rule for the season so far has pretty much been, if you have the opposing quarterback of whoever's playing the Falcons, you start them. On average, they're giving up 32 points per game. That's good enough for 31st out of only 32 teams in the NFL. This is a great matchup for Alex Smith. They're at home against a weak defense. All the stars are aligning. There's a chance that he gets some of his weapons back this week with Paul Richardson. Josh Doctson should be okay. Jordan Reed's still there. Still questionable about Jamison Crowder. I'm going to start Alex Smith this week. I think he provides a safe floor. Is he going to go out there with this super high, huge ceiling, must start week 9? No, he's not. But if there's limited options, deeper leagues, 2 quarterback leagues, I like the possible upside of Alex Smith here in week 9. Texans at Broncos are next. So Deshaun Watson went absolutely crazy last week, right? 239 yards and 5 touchdowns. One of his best games of the season, and it's his 2nd straight game without an interception, which is a great improvement because he was really struggling with the turnovers there to start the year, and now he gets Demaryius Thomas. Does that add, exponential value to Deshaun Watson? Not really. I think it kind of helps DeAndre Hopkins a little bit because now some defensive attention has to shift towards Demaryius Thomas. Lamar Miller's run game is opening up the passing game for Deshaun Watson. He's a must-start for me here now, Week 9, against the Denver Broncos, even though it's in Denver. There's going to be somewhat of a revenge-style game here. I can see them trying to get Demaryius Thomas going as long as he's a full go by week's end. Last week, the Denver Broncos played the Kansas City Chiefs, gave up 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. This is definitely a team that's defense is not what it used to be, right? I do expect there to be some added motivation this week, being that the Broncos are at home. Demaryius is on the other side of the football. But I'm going to start Deshaun Watson. I really like the upside of him going forward, especially once QT comes back. Those are 3 solid studs for him to throw to there on the outside and could lead to a lot of production. On the Broncos side of the football, we have Case Keenum. And now he doesn't have Demaryius Thomas. He gets more Courtland Sutton, which is a good thing because I'm a big fan of Courtland Sutton. But I'm not going to go out there and start Case Keenum this week, despite them playing at home. The Houston Texans right now, the 7th-ranked defense against opposing quarterbacks, giving up on average only 19 points a game, haven't allowed multiple touchdown passes from a quarterback since week 4 against the Indianapolis Colts. It's an improved defense there in Houston, and I'm not going to risk it with Case Keenum this week. He's a sit here week 9. Chargers and Seahawks are next, and we're talking Phillip Rivers, who's having himself another Phillip Rivers-style season. He's had multiple touchdown passes every single week this year, and he's only had 3 interceptions, so he's not turning the ball over. He's been a huge plus for a lot of his owners. He does have both Mike and Tyrell Williams, Keenan Allen, who I expect to get going more here second half of the season. Hopefully Melvin Gordon can come back with Austin Eckler. It's a dynamic offense there in Los Angeles with the Chargers, but they got a really tough matchup. And I know at the beginning of the year we are all like, man, the Legion of Boom is done. The Seattle defense is no more. Well, right now they're the number 2 ranked defense against opposing quarterbacks, giving up on average only 17.3 points per game. This past week against Detroit, they allowed 2 touchdown passes to Matthew Stafford. Before that, they hadn't allowed multiple touchdown passes in a game since week 2. This is a very much improved defense. They're playing at home. They'll have the home crowd behind them. But regardless of that, I'm still going to start Phillip Rivers. He's one of these guys week in and week out, gives you a safe floor, and he's a good start. I'm gonna stick with Phillip Rivers here in week 9. For the Seahawks, we have Russell Wilson. He's also going to be a must start for me here in week 9. I said it in last week's videos. The second half turnaround for Russell Wilson begins after the bye week. He starts to put together a string of really good games. What did he do last week against the Detroit Lions? 248 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. This is now his 3rd straight game over 20 fantasy points. They're going to be playing at home, where he always plays better at home. And they're going up against the Chargers defense, which is, a little bit tough. Right now, they're the 14th ranked defense against opposing quarterbacks, giving up only 21 points per game. If there's any knock right now on Russell Wilson where I'm a little bit worried, it's that the rushing stats for Russell Wilson really haven't been there as of late. But then you've had the insurgence of a David Moore. Tyler Lockett has been consistent. We're trying to get Doug Baldwin back to health. Chris Carson's running the ball 25 times a game. They haven't really needed Russell to run the ball very much, but that is something that's always in his back pocket and is always a possibility and can always boost his value week in and week out. I'm going to start Russell Wilson, and I'm looking for him to continue this breakout here, second half of the season, where he could go on a big run here and take you to the fantasy playoffs. One of the top games of the week, we got the Los Angeles Rams and the New Orleans Saints. So starting off with Jared Goff, and he could get one of his favorite weapons back this week in Cooper Kupp. Still waiting to find out on reports with that. But if he does, this guy is somebody who's almost a must-start every single week because of the offense that they run. He's averaging 27 points a game, the number 5 ranked quarterback in fantasy football, and he gets an amazing matchup against the New Orleans Saints team, which is definitely easier to throw against than they are to run against. Last week against Minnesota, Kirk Cousins put up 359 yards and 2 touchdowns. They've allowed multiple touchdown passes now 4 times this year to opposing quarterbacks. It's definitely a team to throw against, and the Saints themselves can put up some points. So this could be one of these games where we're going back and forth, and it could turn into a high-scoring affair really, really quickly. If you have Jared Goff, he's a solid start here for Week 9. On the Saints side of the football, we got Drew Brees, and there's a lot of people starting to get worried about Drew Brees. Is this the same Drew Brees last year that at times didn't have to really throw the ball because they were so reliant on the run? And I think we may be seeing that Drew Brees type of offense again. However, I'm not looking for it this week. The Rams can beat you so many different types of ways, and they can score points so quickly. I can't see this being one of those games where New Orleans is trying to control the clock on the ground. They're going to have to throw the ball in order to keep pace in this game. You can't really stop the Rams' offense. You can limit them, in certain aspects, but Todd Gurley's the man. You got numerous options. It sounds like they'll get Cooper Kupp back, like I mentioned earlier. This is going to be another one of those weeks where Drew Brees is going to have to throw the ball to win. Now, yes, the Rams, 8th ranked against opposing quarterbacks, giving up on average only 19 points per game. They haven't allowed multiple touchdown passes from a quarterback in the last 2 weeks. That includes last week against Aaron Rodgers. This is definitely a tough matchup for Drew Brees, but this may be one of the last matchups in the next few weeks where he has that high upside value because there's that opportunity for him to throw a lot. On average, opposing quarterbacks of the Los Angeles Rams are having to throw the ball 35 plus times per game. If that happens with Drew Brees, he puts up solid numbers, and he's going to be a start for me this week once again. Packers and Patriots, so we get Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, and I'm going to lump these two together. These are two guys that if you have them, you're probably starting them. You may have another option on your bench, but here, this game, Sunday Night Football, primetime television, you got two of the best quarterbacks of this era going head-to-head in New England. I can see a lot of offense in this game early. And yes, Aaron Rodgers has struggled at times, but what he's really missing is that running game. If they can get Aaron Jones going, that's really going to open up the passing game for Aaron Rodgers, and I expect it to start happening more and more each week. Aaron Jones looks electric, and they're going to have to start getting him involved. Aaron Rodgers knows that. He's mentioned it in press conferences before that they need to get more touches to Aaron Jones. Now that Ty Montgomery is out, that's a total possibility. I like both Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. They could go out there and put on a show for us Sunday Night Football, and I'm looking forward to watching it. They're both starts here in Week 9. All right, so we go from Sunday Night Football with two must-start legends of quarterbacks to Monday Night Football, where we're talking about Marcus Mariota and Dak Prescott. Yes, Dak Prescott has the new weapon in Amari Cooper. However, I'm not so quick to just jump on and say that Dak's going to have this great rest of season. I need to see how this offense starts to flow a little bit if they get Cooper involved. And he's a big part of that offense that's only going to help the run game and Zeke Elliott out and could turn into a productive second half for Dak Prescott. But I want to see that first. Marcus Mariota has been one of the most inconsistent quarterbacks of all the teams. He's currently the 31st ranked quarterback in the NFL. Back in Week 7, before the bye week, 237 yards and a touchdown and an interception. He hasn't had one of those great games this season. I actually been able to put two great games together. He was decent back in Week 4. I mean, you can say that, but that's about his only good game of the year. I'm not going to start either one of these guys. Marcus Mariota, Dak Prescott, both going to be sits for me. But I am going to watch the Dallas offense this week. If it looks like they're starting to trend upwards, Dak Prescott may be somebody you can grab off the waiver wire and be a sneaky ad, give you a little bit of depth, maybe if you have an injury, other bye weeks. Dak Prescott could have value going forward. All right, those were all the quarterback starts and sits here for Week 9. Hopefully that was able to help you make some of your decisions. If not, comments down below. Got almost 26,000 people here willing to help out. A lot of positive interaction down in the comment section, and I love to see that. I really appreciate y'all's support. Channel's still growing like crazy. Make sure you're looking out for a live show end of the week. Haven't quite nailed down the time yet. It's either going to be Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning. My real work schedule's kind of getting in the way this week, but I'm going to find a way to make it work for you guys. I really enjoy the live shows, and I have fun interacting with you. Looking forward to it. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.